Hey there, welcome back to Boldest, your go-to place for all things women in business, career development, as well as consulting. Today I want to cover a topic that applies to everyone, regardless of what field you're in, and that's everything I wish I knew before starting my first full-time job. So as you may know, I work in consulting, but these are more of the high-level paradigm shifts that have really occurred to me since I started work, and this can really apply to everyone. So to give a bit of background, I was the type of student who absolutely loved school. From day one, my parents brought me to pre-K, and I was like, oh my god, this is my jam.
Turn that song off. This is my jam.
This is coming from someone who loved the structure and the well-defined path that academia offered. And this really held true through high school, through CEGEP, and then through university as well. So in my case, when I got to my first full-time job, even though, to be honest, I signed my papers for my first full-time job when I was interning there.
Wow.
I knew throughout school where I was going. I had clear direction, which, you know, I'm really grateful for because I know this is not something that everyone experiences. But when it came down to it, I was really lost when I first started work. Everything that I knew about how to succeed and what I was supposed to do and where I was going sort of fell apart because I was the only person that I was really accountable to, which is a really scary thing. And so I want to reassure everyone that I'm 99.9% sure that this is something that everyone goes through. Everyone feels a little bit lost when they're first starting their first job right out of university. Some people don't get to, you know, the job that they actually want to do until multiple months or years after finishing university. So I think it's about really staying true to who you are and just finding the strength in you to keep pushing forward and knowing what your end goals are. So with that being said, here are a couple of things that I wish I knew before I started work full-time. My aim here is that by sharing these things with you guys, you'll feel more reassured and more comfortable going into these first full-time jobs, because I know most of you will be starting in September. So the first thing you realize when you come out of school is that there is no more clear track. When you're in your academia path, the next step is always super clear.
You go from high school, then you try to get into a good CEGEP, and then you work your butt off in CEGEP to get into your dream program in university, then you follow all the classes in university, get involved in the extracurriculars,
in order to try to get your dream job. So there's always a clear path, and you have a ton of resources if you're able to, you know, leverage them, that are going to help you get to there. You have tutors, you have career coaches, you have clubs that are going to support you and lift you up. But when you actually get into your first full-time job, the landscape looks a little bit different. Of course, there's still a path that you can follow. For example, in the world of consulting where I work, you go from analyst to consultant, senior consultant, manager, the list goes on. And this is where it gets a little bit more complicated. If you look at it through the lens of the path that is sort of offered to you by the firm that you're working in, this simply becomes about getting your next promotion. And when it comes to me, someone who's extremely intrinsically motivated, it becomes really hard for me to be excited about my job and stay motivated when all I have to look forward to is that little bump in salary or that next title. So instead of looking at the world like a clear path that has been laid out for you like you've done in school, when you start a full-time job, you have to completely reconsider what a clear path means to you and what actually works for you. In this case, you have to look further than simply your current job and rather think about what your dream goal for your life is. And then from there, you can do something called backcasting, which I talk about in my How to Build a Personal Brand video. And that's essentially showing you that if you want to reach this major goal, then what are all of the different steps that you need to take in order to get there? And in the context of this, you need to build your own path. You need to figure out what that success looks like for you instead of getting bogged down into the path that is simply offered to you on a silver platter. And hey, this is so scary. As someone who loves structure and has always felt a lot of comfort in knowing that I'm always doing the right thing, it becomes scary to know that, you know, the right thing is actually determined by you. But I think this is something that comes with, you know, confidence and experience. And obviously I'm still figuring this out. But a good way to figure out what your path to success looks like is looking online for people who have similar paths that really inspire you. Or it's finding a mentor who can help you figure out those steps. You simply can't be scared to take your career into your own hands. So the second thing I wish I knew before starting my full-time job is that there is no more formula to get an A. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. So in most classes or most majors, you sort of figure out as you go what the professors are looking for, what makes you stand out, or how much studying you need to do to actually get that A or to get as close to an A as possible. I got to a point when I was in university that I knew that if I studied 14 hours for this exam that would basically guarantee me a 90% and up, and that was just based on my style of work and how much I listened in class and how many notes I took and all of that. So I figured out my personal formula to quote unquote succeed in what I was doing. And obviously I don't want to generalize here. I know for my major, you know, studying business and marketing and IT, it was easy to figure that out because a lot of my classes actually ended up having a similar pattern or formula to them. However, I know that for other fields, every class is completely different. The main point I'm trying to make here is that when you enter full-time work, this kind of disappears. The work that you're asked to do is so varied and so different that it becomes very difficult to figure out how to get that perfect A. And that's my other point. There's no more such thing as a perfect A. Of course, you'll get feedback from the people around you, your managers and your peers, but this feedback is, you know, subjective and based on the past experiences of the person, and also isn't based on a sort of clear grading scheme like you're used to in university. So in order to deal with this, and I know at least for myself this was one of the biggest hurdles that I faced in starting to work full-time, is essentially figuring out what success looks like for you. Is success coming out of a project having learned something? Is it being able to teach it to others? Figure out what that means for you and find a way to be proud of your accomplishments without needing that gold star on the work that you actually do. So the third thing that I wish I knew before starting full-time work is that essentially you go from sprinting to being in a marathon.
Water?
When I was in school, it was so much easier to just put my head down and work, you know, 16 to 20-hour days, not eat, not work out, not sleep, just because I knew that I would have a break in X number of weeks. For example, I knew that I could work super hard and pull a couple of all-nighters in a row because summer would roll around and then I would have like 2 to 3 weeks before starting my internship when I could just like sleep and play video games all day. And honestly, this wasn't great. During my time at McGill, I got mono one year and then a burnout the next year. And my trick got really out of control and I was honestly miserable. However, you quickly realize in starting work that this isn't going to be realistic because you're constantly going to be pushing yourself and challenging yourself with new types of work. If you want to survive a high intensity field like consulting, investment banking, or law, you're gonna need to pace yourself and figure out what your boundaries are so that you can get up every morning without being scared of actually having a burnout. This means making working out part of your life, trying to get as much sleep as you can, and no, that's not 4 hours, that's 7 to 8 hours like you should. And this is also spending time with your family and your loved ones so that your mental health is taken care of. As someone who always pushed themselves so much in university, it was difficult finding this shift in mindset when I started work, not because I wanted to work less or not because I wasn't willing to put the work in, just because I realized that we were in a different type of race and that if I continued with my terrible habits, I wouldn't be able to achieve the goals that I wanted to achieve. Figure out your priorities and don't let your career or don't let your crazy job make you compromise on these, because these are so important and this is what's going to keep you going in the long run. So the fourth thing I realized when I started working full-time is that constant learning is no longer your baseline. When you're in school, your only job is to put your head down and to learn new things. And not only do we kind of take this for granted just because of the world that we live in and the fact that most people will go to higher education, some people actually hate it and get annoyed with having to take exams and various evaluations. However, once you start working full-time, even though you're on this expedited learning curve and you're constantly getting to know new things, explicit learning kind of gets put on the back burner. You end up learning the skills that are most prevalent in the people around you and the skills that are going to help you succeed in your job right now. However, if your current job isn't necessarily your long-term dream job, you're not learning skills daily that will help you achieve your long-term career goal. This can essentially box you into a role that you'll get really, really good in stuff that you don't really care about. So in order to mitigate this, you really have to keep focusing on developing hard and soft skills in topics that you love and that you care about and you see yourself working in the long term. In terms of soft skills, these can be things like presentation skills, communication skills, leadership, project management, and then there's all the hard skills you need. And there's a lot of these that you'll be able to find courses for online, and because there's such a breadth of hard skills that you can learn about, you essentially have to pick stuff that is really interesting to you, and then you'll be able to grow in them. So essentially, pick the skills in topics that you're interested in, make sure that they're going to help you right now in your career, and also make sure that they're going to help you in the long term in your career, so that the time that you're spending on these is actually worth it. So the last thing I realized from transitioning from university to full-time work is that your accountable to one person, and that's yourself. When you're in university, it's so easy to feel accountable to your professors or your career advisors or even your parents. And this quickly translates into when you're in your first time job, feeling like you become accountable to your manager. And of course you are, and you need to put your head down and do the work that is required of you so that you can grow. However, you have to realize that you have to stop doing the things that you think are right and instead do the things that you want to do to help you achieve your goals. When you start work, your possibilities become endless. Your vision isn't once I'm going to finish university. It becomes, oh my God, I'm going to be working for the next 40 years of my life. What does that actually look like for me? You need to become accountable truly to yourself and to the things that you love to do and to the goals that you want to reach. I know this sounds a little bit fluffy and that's not the direction I want to go in, but this has been one of the biggest realizations for me this year. You have to stop doing what you think you're meant to be doing and start doing what you actually want to do, because at the end of the day, that's what's going to make you happy and that's what's going to make you successful. So on that note, thank you so much for watching. I hope you appreciated this video all about the things that I wish I knew before starting to work full-time coming out of university. If you like my content, you can follow me on Instagram at Tamara_Belair, and you can also reach out to me if you have any questions or any ideas for videos that you'd like me to cover. Talk soon. Cheers. Thanks.